Have you ever been so in the zone that time seems to slow down? Everything just clicks? Maybe it was a big presentation, a crucial game, or even a creative breakthrough. Now imagine that moment, but in an Olympic swimming pool where the world is watching. Today, we dive into the mind of elite athlete David Karasek, a Swiss Olympian turned high-performance mindset coach. From the relentless pursuit of gold to finding a deeper sense of fulfilment beyond the medals, David's journey is a powerful lesson on the balance between ambition and happiness. In this episode, we'll uncover what it really takes to reach peak performance, how to tap into the elusive flow state, and why success without happiness is an unfinished race. Whether you're an athlete, entrepreneur, or just someone chasing big dreams, get ready to rethink how you define winning. Let's jump into it. David Karasek, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me on, man.
Now, early days, let's go back as a kid. What sparked your love for swimming, or how did you get into the pool?
So, man, my dad was a swimmer, and I guess he just he was the one who taught us, me, my brother, and my sister, how to swim. And then my parents, they did awesome because they took us to all different kinds of sports like tennis and volleyball and karate. And for me, on tennis, I remember when I lost, I would throw my racket around and stuff. So my parents were like, okay, it's probably not like a good idea. And then swimming just kind of seemed to work out, and I kind of slipped into that. Started swimming more and more, and that's, through my dad, 100%.
Did your competitive spirit, like in tennis, you're always up against the opponent, whereas in the pool, it's like the conditions are otherwise always the same, and you're essentially just programmed to work against, like, your biggest competitor is just you, right? Just wanting to improve. Did you, obviously as a kid, you lent into that a lot more?
Man, I don't think I was aware of any of that, to be honest. But it is a question I think about a lot these days. Like, do you know why? So swimmers mentally are not the toughest athletes in my observation. Like, not at all. And tennis players or squash players, they are mentally very, very tough. Have you ever thought about why that is?
I mean, in competitive sport where there is an opponent, there is someone actively trying to beat you. Whereas in the pool or triathlon, even to a certain degree, yes, they're all trying to win, but there's no one in the lane, right? In your lane, you're solely in control of your own environment. And so I look at whether it's basketball or whether it's any competitive sport where there is an opponent to you, wrestling, karate, MMA, that's incredibly challenging because you've done all the work. The same level of preparation, I think, as swimming or individual sports, but you've actually got an opponent that wants to beat you.
Yeah, man, I agree. And I think there's something else in just how I got that from Roger Federer. You know Roger Federer?
Well, not as close as you, man, but I'm aware of the guy.
I heard of him. So basically what in tennis, you can, if you win more than 50% of the points, you're still going to win the match, right? But that also means that often they lose like 45 or 49% of the exchanges, and so they're going through I just call it, they go through the shit all the time. So they have like a great point, and then the opponent makes a really good point, they do a double fault, they hit it in the net, they hit it out or whatever, and they have a bit of time for them to like walk back to the line, they get the ball, they start dribble, or the opponent dribbles, and they have to learn to refocus. So like whatever happened just before, there can be a storm inside going on, but they have a couple of seconds to refocus. And if they cannot do that, they'll mess up. And in swimming, I see it so often, that happened to me also. It's like if the first race of the competition wasn't great, everything else was bad because I didn't know how to refocus. You know what I mean? I let that control everything. And then if we have like 20 competitions in a year, that's not a lot of opportunities to learn how to refocus, whereas tennis players get thousands and thousands all the time. And that's why
that exposure is there to be able to let go of a bad experience or a bad exchange and just reset, right? So what age were you when you tasted success in the pool, and when did you think, you know what, I could potentially go to the Olympics here?
So I had the dream as a kid, but I didn't taste success at the time. I was really late. So I think that only happened when I was like 21 years old, when I was in America, when my coach over there, because I had the Olympic dream And then, the adults around me, yeah, it's not like in Australia where they're, okay, go for it and stuff. It was like, well, do school and stuff, be realistic. We'll see later. And that dream was kind of put on the back burner or even like squashed.
Yeah, right.
But then in America, the coach went like, looking at your yard times and stuff, right? You know that you can make the Olympic team. I was like, what? And then that dream came alive again. And yeah, it's crazy.
And you went to the States, like to college, to swim for college?
Yeah, I went to that. I went to the University of Virginia, and they made some like really good hires. That's why in my last year of swimming there, they hired the sports psychologist of Phelps, and I got to work with him for a year one-on-one. That changed everything for me. But that was my last year of competitive swimming, and so at the end of it, and then everything changed. Right, I made the Olympic team. I got a Swiss record in front of like 12,000 people there in London, and I'm like, then I went into private banking for a little bit because I thought I need to make money and stuff. But then I'm like, okay, would have been cool to kind of know these mental tricks and tips and ways to look at the world when I was like 13, 14 instead of 23. Yeah.
And that's where the passion has sort of ignited.
Exactly. That's when I came back to like swimming. It's like, okay, there's so much that I can give to the younger generation. I'm like, okay, I'm going to leave private banking and do my own thing.
So what did you learn from, on reflection, like as you were preparing for the London Olympics and you've got this psychologist who worked with Phelps, like what's the aha moments? What are the things that you're going, oh my God, I can't believe that. I didn't know that.
He one of the first meetings I remember, because I was one of the first guys. They hired him and he didn't even have the couch yet and stuff, so we sat on the floor. I was the first athlete of everybody who was there. And
that's awesome.
I remember he like drew a ladder on a board, and the ladder had three parts. It had the left leg, the right leg, and the middle part. And he said the left leg is the first thing that we can train as swimmers, and that is the body. Okay, so that's your endurance, your explosiveness, your strength, all of that. Then the right leg is the technique that you can train. You know swimming, right? So it's like, it's really important how good your technique is. Without technique, you're just not going to get there. And then he said the middle part is your mind, and that's the third and last thing that you can train as a swimmer. And he said that you need to have all three, whether that is training or competition. For me, it was more like the thing that absolutely did not work out was competition, because I was very like anxious before a race. He's like, you need all three, and if one of them breaks down, you're not going to get to that next level of success, right? So if you're emotionally the strongest kid in the world, you got great technique, but you're with a broken shoulder or sick, you're not going to do very well, right? So if you lack one of the three, and I'm like, oh shit, that, like the mind, that was what always broke down for me, and that was my limiting factor in everything I was doing. And then it's like, okay, yeah, let's do it.
Yeah, right. I love that analogy, because you've got the two poles and the middle, and without the three of them, the ladder falls over, right? But importantly, the connecting piece between your physical ability and your technical ability is your mindset. I just love that. I love that so much. How did you apply that as you prepared for the games?
So, I mean, like, you can't see it there, but I always go, every day I get 1% better. So, because you can, in a way, right, there's two ways to swim faster. Either you train better every day, so then you're on a whole different level by the time you're like rested and stuff. That's one way to get better. And then the other way is like, that's the practice mindset. And the other one is what I call the competition mindset, is that you can access all of what you got, whatever level you're at, in the most important moment, and then hopefully more, because you have like the excitement of competition. There's an opportunity or a challenge of a lifetime. And so we kind of like split it in these two things. But for me, like the big one was doing breathing exercises to stay calm before the race and like stay locked in and not freak out, no matter who was next to me. Again, like the opponents, right?
Yeah.
And the other thing was to do visualization, because one of the things, like I always tell the kids or the teenagers, even the young adults, when they tell me that they're training like 9 times a week and they're getting nervous before the big race, like What do we know about them? Like, think about it. That even if we never met the kid, they're training so much and they're getting nervous when it counts. What do we know about them? We call it the anxiety advantage because it's actually cool things. But what do you know when somebody gets nervous?
It means something to them.
Exactly, right? They care.
Yeah. And probably that they're not, you're only nervous, I guess, and this is where I tapped into so much visualization in my side of the sport. But yeah, you definitely care, but also it's the unknown. And so the visualization comes into play is I think, to assist. You're always going to care, and that's where the nervousness, that's why I think nervousness and excitement, they share the traits so similar in terms of the physiological or the emotional response to what, when you say I'm excited versus I'm nervous, they're very similar. But the difference in my mind is the unknown of what's going to happen is the difference between being excited and being nervous. Because if you're excited, you're almost aware of what's going to happen, and it's going, and you've prepared for it. And if you're nervous, you don't know what's going to happen. And so the difference between the two places in my mind is that visualization. So you see the event, you see the outcome well before you experience it, you do it. So you're so confident. And you see that, I guess, in a lot of the sports where you see a 100-meter sprinter track, and they cross the finish line and they're stoked, but they're not surprised. There's no surprise factor because they've seen that event. They've seen the start. They've seen the progress, the transition. They've seen the finish line all the time in their mind. And so I want to know, practically, you're going to the Olympics for your very first time there, and you do set, a Swiss national record. And how did visualization look for you?
What I did was, because initially it was just like kind of classic, like laying down, visualizing the race, but like visualizing the ideal race. Okay, that I think like what you just said, because a lot of people, right, they're good at visualizing when they get nervous, but they're visualizing the wrong shit because they're visualizing what could go wrong, right? Yeah. So that's why they have the skill of visualization, because it's very vivid to them. That's why they get the reaction. And all they have to learn is basically take that skill and start visualizing the things that they actually want to happen instead of things they don't want to happen, and do it with the same realness and the same vividness, and then the subconscious won't be able to tell the difference. So for me, I did it like laying down and like imagining stuff, but it wasn't like as real. And one day I just kind of like felt bored and put like, well, I was different in a different place, living in a different place, but I was moving everything away. So I had like room, I had space. And then I closed my eyes and actually started walking into the call room. And I would put on my goggles, like for real, right? My cap. I was even doing like wearing like the suit and stuff, right? I would walk out and adjust like the blocks and stuff and feel, just move my body through the visualization with eyes closed. And then, I mean, if I had to look where I am in the room, I just open them real quick and close them again. And then swim the actual race, like in real time. Everything before the race was kind of sped up a little bit because otherwise it'd take forever. And then swim the race in real time, touch the wall, check the time, and see the time that I wanted to go. And then like let those emotions like wash over me in that moment, right? And like see my mom and my sister in the stands and stuff, how they're like holding this and stuff like that. I made it so much more real, that this is what I do with my kids now too. Instead of them just laying down and like falling asleep and stuff, we like actually move the body through the experience, like with the breathing. Yeah. And I think it adds like another layer of vividness to the visualization. So that's kind of where we're at now.
Yeah, giving that movement
does that make sense?
That gives it so much power, much more powerful. Yeah, for sure.
Does that make sense? Have you ever tried it?
No. I try to tap into all senses through the mind. So I think, all right, what does it smell like? What does it sound like? What are the, to really get into it? But it's all static for me. So, I mean, it's more challenging to visualize with movement, a 7-hour day of endurance sport. But, right. I like it. I like it generally, for sure. So you use that that practice. And the breathing, I guess, puts you in the present moment, right? That's the purpose of the breathing exercises, and that centers you back and takes you away from the anxiety or the worry about what's going to happen or what has happened, and brings you right back to the center.
That's right. I mean, that's call it the magic trick, because it's just visualization. In my experience, only starts working with repetition, because you're kind of like given the subconscious, right? Like something, like view of the future. And as you said, you've seen it so many times, right? So that's what they all, I studied visualization a lot just by reading what great athletes and like business people and stuff do. And they're, as you say, they're not really surprised, right? I mean, some of them are, but because they're doing even better. But most of the time they've seen it so many times. And with the breathing, it just works like right out the gate. And that's pretty cool because it's easy to do. They just can't forget to do it at the right time, but that's pretty much it.
And then how do you reflect on the actual race you did in London and setting that Swiss record? Now you're a bit older.
Yeah, man, I don't remember much, that's the thing. That tells me I was very present. I remember like them introducing me and stuff, and then I was doing the breathing and I was very locked in. I did not, history would say that I would be terrified of like swimming in front of like 12, 15,000 people, but it was almost like they were there, but didn't bother me at all. And I actually really enjoyed it. And I mean, I remember touching the wall and then seeing the time and just me being it was also August 1st, which happens to be Swiss National Day. So I got a Swiss record on Swiss National Day.
Swiss.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
good.
Yeah. So I was happy, man. Yeah.
All right. Well, let's dive into this whole bit about the flow state. I guess how you have adapted the learnings from your career as a swimmer back into helping kids and young adults in finding their potential.
Yeah. So, man, I mean, with the kids, right? It's the cool thing about kids and teenagers is that they will listen to somebody they kind of look up to, somebody who might have some authority, even though I never like really use but you know how it is. It's like the teacher, right? It was like the man in the white coat. But it's like
you wait till your daughter grows up.
Exactly. But that's what I'm saying. It's like, well, she's not going to listen to me, but then
she will for a little while.
Exactly. Exactly. And then she won't. But that's when we come in. That's what I tell 100%. The parents. The part of like why we're so successful is because we're not their parents.
Yeah.
Right? And if the values of the parents and the values that I and my team bring and they're aligned, then that makes a really good team, because we kind of help them plant the kids, like plant new seeds, and then all we got to do as adults around it, we just got to nurture it. We don't have to like tell them, oh, do this, do this. They, they'll ask. They'll start asking when they get, the curiosity comes and stuff, and we give them like a quick win with the breathing, and all of a sudden they're like locked in and they swim like a crazy PB, and they come back, oh, mommy, what David said, it was crazy how this worked, and then they're like,
that's exactly what I've been telling you for the last 3 months, but I'm glad David had said something to you yesterday and that worked.
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
essentially what they're saying, right?
Exactly that, right? That's what the parents, exactly.
Yeah. But exactly. You're right. But I think also that's a human trait to, at that pivotal moment, and it becomes such an important moment for adolescent kids and young adults to have that mentor and have that positive role model in the likes of yourself and your team, to be able to, they don't bring there's no bias, or there's no history with you and as they have with their own parents. So what is it specifically though are you helping them through with? Are they all just swimmers and you're just helping them, develop that middle rung of the ladder, so to speak?
Yeah, in a way. So they're all swimmers, because, man, when I used to work with like all kinds of athletes, and it also, like, don't get me wrong, it's great. But to scale, it's more difficult because we rely on paid ads. And if you run paid ads for like a very broad thing, it didn't work for me. So when I started to go like, okay, exactly, where can I add the most value and speak? Because like the language you speak to a tennis player is different than the language to a swimmer. So that's when I just started to like, niche down on like competitive swimming. And we do the middle part of it. Sometimes, if they never get like technical education from their coach, because that also happens. There's a lot of bad swim coaches out there, man. I don't know how it is in Australia, but here in Europe, there's a lot of people that just let them do lots of kilometers, but they don't look at the technical education. And as I said, just as important. We supplement with that as well. But I focus on the mental skills, because they're the ones that transfer to whatever they're going to do after swimming. And even though it may not feel like there is a life after swimming for them, we know it's just, there's so many bigger things coming after swimming, like family and, and those skills, they really neatly transfer over. And that's what I'm most excited about, because hopefully those teenagers, young adults and kids in 10, 20 years from now, they're gonna remember and maybe call me, or like remember me, what we did back then and how that set them up. So that's why it's not just about fast swimming. It's cool, it's fun, we love fast swimming, but it's like life, so to say.
I love that. And you're working towards helping them become really well-rounded humans, right? As well as being fast swimmers.
Yeah.
And with that, I guess, David, a question that I had in my mind this morning in preparing for today's chat is your views on this path of high performance and ambition versus the path of, let's say, for lack of a better word, happiness. Do you think that those two paths can coexist in such a demanding, journey of professional swimming?
I think so, man. Not that I have it figured out or had it figured out, and I would still say, if I have a coach and he's showing me my blind spots and stuff, so I'm just gonna be 100% real with you. I still struggle with that. Like, I want to be like successful in earthly terms and stuff, but then, always wanting more and not being in present and like chasing things, right? That means like, okay, if I'm chasing happiness, then that means, for definition, I'm not as happy as right? Yeah. So like I'm trying to juggle it. So what answer do you have? Definitely, you have more experience.
I think the path to excellence creates fulfillment for me. So I'm very aware of setting a goal and wanting to go after something that's massive, but it's that journey that's fulfilling for me. Don't have this position of I'll be happy when I get there. It's actually scary when I get there, because it's like, well, I need to set something else, because I'm very aware that it's taken some time to get to that position of being so aware that I need to be on the pursuit of excellence in something, for me to be fulfilled or for me to be happy. So it's almost like that analogy of, I'm stoked when I'm climbing a really hard mountain, not because I know the view's coming and that's what I'm doing it for, but when I get there to the top of the view, I'm just hoping that there's another big mountain ahead of me, because the climb is what's fulfilling, not reaching the top.
Yeah, well
that
said.
Makes sense.
Yeah, totally makes sense. I'm working towards it. I'm just like, I'm reminding myself of that every day, and it's getting better. And my daughter like helps so much to be present and like not stress out about business stuff or like whatever else is going on, right? But I think like there's 3 questions that I ask all of my kids, and I guess I'm like thinking they're super easy, but I think in sports is like, what do you want? Very important that they know. How badly do you want it? And then the third question is, how much are you willing to suffer? Because in competitive sports, like, you will suffer. There's nobody at the top that did not suffer, right? And I think like for us, if we're not sports, it's like, okay, what price are you willing to pay? Because nothing in this world is free. So that you have to, correct. And I don't mean like monetary, but no. You're gonna have to pay.
There is an exchange of some. If there is a cost of everything, right? But there's also, David, there's a cost of inaction too, right? So by doing nothing, by sitting on your hands and not going after, the business or or a sporting dream or whatever, you just sit there because you're scared to fail, let's say. There's a cost to that too. So that's the whole position of like choose your hard. It's hard getting up in the morning and swimming 14 times a week, and it's hard risking it all for a business. It's hard shit. It's hard going from a Swiss banker to running your own business, inspiring, thousands of adolescent kids. But the alternative is hard as well. Sitting there and not doing something you're passionate about, or sitting there and doing nothing. It's all challenging. So you may as well go and embrace the challenge that is your true north, that does inspire you, that does going towards a journey that, helps your family, for example, rather than the alternative. But anyway, talk to me about your daughter. Talk to me about your family. I want to know more.
Yeah,
she's not old.
I hear. So she's 16 months. And man, I mean, every dad and mom that I spoke to before we had her name is Luana, told me it's the best thing in the world, right? And I was like, okay, I believe you, but I had no idea. And then when it actually like happened, I had my world rocked, because I never thought I could fall in love with like that much. And it I thought, because the way like my dad was talking was like, oh yeah, you can bring her to me once she's doing sports and stuff. And right, he was always the doer. And I thought, okay, maybe it's like kind of useless in the beginning. You're just there as a dad, you don't know what to do and all that. And then that was absolutely not true. I went in there and I was like, okay, I don't know if I want to have that experience. I want to just start blank and be there from the beginning and stuff. And then that's literally what unfolded. So my wife and I were like, she's working a little bit. I got my stuff, and quite flexible in a way.
Yeah.
And it's just, I don't know, it's the best thing. Yeah, I confirm it's the best thing.
Yeah. Absolutely the best.
Yeah.
So good. All right. We're pivoting. What are your lessons to the people, I guess, they're not adolescent children and swimming, hoping to reach nationals or the Olympics? Humans in general, adults in general, in their day-to-day life, what are the takeaways that you have learnt as an Olympic swimmer who has been exposed to this sort of psychology and this mindset work, and you're in this path now, inspiring kids? But what are the key takeaways as adults that we can do to implement into our day-to-day life?
Man, that is such a good question. So since you just added in the day-to-day life, what I come to the conclusion is that, people who look very disciplined, right? You could argue that they get a lot done and stuff. They kind of, when they set their mind to it, they go and like go after it. But it's not really that they're more disciplined, because none of us really has like a lot of willpower. There may be like some specific, like, some exceptions and whatever, but most humans, including myself, willpower maybe pretty strong in the morning, and then as things go on throughout the day, it's not so good in the afternoon and in the evening. So when you look at people who are very disciplined and get stuff done, it's actually that all they have is like good habits. They have taken their time to build like a set of good habits, and now they look very disciplined. But for them, right, you just build a new habit that empowers you, and use your willpower to make it a habit. And when you have that a habit, it literally in that moment, it requires, and however long that takes, a couple of weeks, couple of months, I don't know exactly, but once you have it, it requires no energy. And you take your willpower and you build the next habit, and you start to stack them on top. And after a while, so like change your habits, change your life. That's one of the takeaways. Like, because like working out for me, it's like, it's super easy. And people are like, how do you always like work out? When I don't have a gym for like 3 days, I'm starting to go crazy, and I'll find a gym. I'll go outside. You know what I mean? You know what I mean, right?
Yeah.
So the habits.
I always bring it back to a simple place of like brushing your teeth too. So like brushing your teeth is not something that, it's not hard for the 99% of people, they brush their teeth twice a day, and it's not a thing that, it's a non-negotiable, it's a habit. And so there's no energy about it that requires in their brain, oh, do I do that today or do I do it tomorrow? It's just like, no, that's what gets done. And so it's not as if we don't have access to that discipline. We don't have access to that habitual nature of something, but it's, I guess, prioritizing what's important. Now, the three things you talked about as well, I love the three questions you gave to your athletes, and that is, what do you want? How badly do you want it? And what are you willing to sacrifice? No. What are the three? Remind me.
It's like, well, I guess like, yeah, the first two, and it just depends on who you're talking to. I guess I would just like use different words, but how much are you willing to suffer is kind of what works for an athlete. And then what price are you willing to pay will probably be more for like, business people and stuff, in my opinion.
What's your take on the first question though? How do you determine what you want?
Oh man, if I had just what's my take? Yeah, man. I mean, like, look, the way the first time I started working with my coach, that was probably like 6 years ago or so. He just had me shut off my mind and like listen to my heart, like literally listen to what the heart is saying, free from whether I know how I'm going to get there, if it is going to work out, if I have the resources, free from all the circumstances, just what do I want? Not what my dad wants, not what my mom wants. Because when I quit private banking, my mom started crying because she's all about, that's her, her past and stuff is like not having like enough, they didn't have money and right? It's like financial safety. And so not what they want, not what my brother wants, not what my cat wants, what do I want? And
what did you get to in that exercise? Tell me, if you want to share.
It was, to be independent and not, because like, look, I was in the corporate world and from every angle that I looked, the question I had is like, if I'm not there tomorrow, does anybody care? And I pondered on the question. I was like, nobody gives a damn. Nobody cares if I'm there or not. And I was like, I want to, I would like this too. Whatever I do, there's people, it's like, okay, where's David? Like, when is he coming back? You know what I mean? It's like you add value. And that was it for me. It's like, okay, I want to do my own thing. I didn't know what. I just started, I knew the direction, but I didn't know what specifically it was going to be. But that like kind of fuzzy thing, as I started talking to people, as I started doing, it became more and more clear. And I think, I didn't know exactly what I wanted. It's not like, you know what I mean? It was fuzzy, but at least it gave me a direction where I could start to explore, and then answers came.
Yeah, I love that. And I think, so for you, going through that exercise, did you leave the banking world before you knew where your heart was going?
Kind of. I just knew I wanted to be independent and stuff. Yeah.
But you didn't have a clear direction, I guess, is that you knew that you didn't want to be here. So you left almost like because you had this feeling that you're like, well, this isn't it. So I'm going to leave and find somewhere else. And the path will show itself.
Exactly. And
I love that.
Yeah. And I'm a big believer in courage. And sometimes you just gotta, even though you have it's scary. But yeah, courage.
Yeah.
What's the worst that could happen? In Switzerland, the worst that could happen is you go back to your parents. You know what I mean? It's like, that's the worst that could happen. If that's the worst, then again, what you said, sometimes, all times, probably, it's just worth risking it and choosing hard now so you can have it easy later instead of trying to do easy now and then having it hard for the rest of your freaking life.
Yeah. And there was I don't know who said it. I was listening to it on the weekend. It was make easy choices, you have a hard life, and you make hard choices, you have an easy life. And I just love that because life is a series of decisions it's where you're making a decision about the easy way or the right way, and you're choosing the right way because it's not easy. And I almost say to my team as well, like almost always the hard way is the correct way. You don't want to force things, but it's the challenge that creates the outcome or creates the currency or the value of the outcome. And you almost want that sacrifice because if it was easy, everyone would be doing it, right? So the ridiculous amount of laps you would have swum in preparation for the Olympics. If that was easy, then everyone would be an Olympian. But we're not. So Oh, man. And how do you reflect as being an Olympian now? It's like 13 years and then what? We've had 3 or 4 pass after that. How do you reflect on that whole experience?
Man, it's a very good question. I actually don't not like I don't really like think about it anymore because it seems like it's so long ago. Because when my daughter was born again, like that was just a new world. I'm like, okay, here was I thinking
Time
like
starts
swimming.
now.
Yeah, yeah, for real. So I don't really like think much. I'm just like amazed with like in swimming, it's come such a long way. Like all the world records that Phelps had, like none of them exists today, right? They're all gone. Swimming has developed like crazy, and we have like super good swimmers in Switzerland, which I'm like also very excited about because a lot of them like work with us and stuff.
Yeah,
But I don't really like really reflect on it anymore. I just like try to be where we are here and kind of like plan for the future and just enjoy now. To be honest.
yeah. Great answer, man. All right, before you go, and I appreciate your time. 5 quick fire questions for you to give me quick fire answers to. Okay.
Cool.
What's your definition of success?
I got a quick fire. Well,
come on.
Yeah. If your actions are aligned with your values.
I love that. Your definition of happiness.
Being in the present moment.
These are great answers. Number 1, what's your most recommended book that you've read?
Gap and Gain.
Gap and Gain.
Gap and Gain. Have you heard of that? It's Dan Sullivan. He's an entrepreneur. He's like in his 80s. Okay. He's probably like maybe the most successful like entrepreneur coach.
Okay.
He's old, and now all his time is spent on passing on the knowledge that he gathered over the last 50 years or whatever into like books, and like that's a great book. Has lots of sports analogies, very applicable for. I mean, hands down, it's a really cool book, and I give just one keynote. That's the topic of the keynote, and people love it because you can implement it right away. So if you love reading Gap and Gain, I can highly recommend.
Awesome. 4 guests that you'd invite to dinner, who are alive or dead, but can't be friends or family.
Michael Phelps, Donald Trump, Will Smith, and Martin Luther King.
I love it. And then finally, David, a guest that you would recommend for us to have on the show.
You know what? Nicola Spirig. She's the Nicola Spirig is a world Olympic champion triathlon.
Olympic champion triathlon.
Yeah, we like work together and stuff. So she, also mom with 3 kids, went to like 5 Olympic. Like her story's pretty crazy.
Yeah. Well, man, if you can connect us, that'd be so good. Yeah. She's a weapon. So, man, thank you so much for your time and keep doing what you're doing. It's super inspirational, and to be able to help the younger, the kids and adolescents and young adults into breaking down that mindset, helping their swimming, but also help them as humans into their lives post the pool, even if they don't know it. It's awesome, man. It's so good to see.
Thanks for having me on, Richard.
Appreciate it. All right, man. That was another episode of the Success Times Happiness podcast. Thank you so much for listening. Next time you find yourself in flow state, turn to the person next to you and tell them all about the show. It really means a lot. And please feel free to leave us a review or comment on whatever platform you're listening on. It helps us grow and get more incredible guests like David. Until next time,